We are giant slayers. Oh, we are giant slayers. I got 5 smooth rocks for you.
Truly the signs of an apostle were wrought among you in all patience, in signs and wonders and mighty deeds. For what is it wherein ye were inferior to other assemblies, except it be that I myself was not burdensome to you? Forgive me this wrong. Behold, the 3rd time I am ready to come to you, and I will not be burdensome to you. For I seek not yours, but you. For the children ought not to lay up for the parents, but the parents for the children. And I will very gladly spend, and be spent for you. Though the more abundantly I love you, the less I be loved. But be it so, I did not burden you. Nevertheless, being crafty, I caught you with guile. Did I make a gain of you by any of them whom I sent unto you? I desired Titus, and with him I sent a brother. Did Titus make a gain of you? Walk we not in the same spirit? Walk we not in the same steps? Again, think ye that we excuse ourselves unto you? We speak before Yah in the Messiah. But we do all things, dearly beloved, for your edifying. For I fear, lest when I come, I shall not find you such as I would, that I shall be found unto you such as ye would not, lest there be debates, envyings, wraths, strifes, backbitings, whisperings, swellings, tumults. Hello and welcome back to Word of Life Ministry here on YouTube. It is great to be with you again once more. What you heard read was 2 Corinthians, the 12th chapter, beginning in verse 12 through verse 20. And the title of our study today is Motivations of a False Prophet. Now, the overall motivation of a false prophet, you must understand, is selfish ambition. John summed it up, and as we're going to see, what drives a false prophet is the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. But before we begin to look in more in-depth details at what motivates a false prophet, I would like to take you back to Corinthians that was just read, beginning in verse 12, and let's just look over these verses real quick and see what the message is that Paul was communicating to the Corinthians as he prepared to make his 3rd missionary journey to the city of Colossae. He says, Truly the signs of an apostle were wrought among you in all patience, in signs and wonders and mighty deeds. For what is it wherein ye were inferior to other assemblies, except it be that I myself was not burdensome to you? And he said, Forgive me this wrong. Paul was saying to the Corinthians here, and I mentioned Colossae earlier, but I meant Corinth. Paul was saying to the Corinthians here that where he may have gone wrong with them is the fact that he had not asked of them for financial support. He said, that's the only place where I could have gone wrong, and he said, forgive me this wrong, because what I've basically done is I've robbed from other assemblies in order to uplift you, in order to benefit you, rather than have you making the necessary financial sacrifices. I have robbed from other assemblies for your benefit. And so he said, forgive me this wrong. It goes on to say in verse 13, verse 14, Behold, the 3rd time I am ready to come to you, and I will not be burdensome to you, for I seek not yours, but you. Here's my first point. What we're doing here now, we're contrasting or comparing the heart of a true prophet as opposed to the heart of a false prophet. Paul Shaul, a true prophet of Yah, desiring so much for the people, recognizing that they were babes in Yahushua. He sought not to burden them with the cost of missionary service. And so what he did was, instead of coming to them, asking them for financial support, he asked other believers in other assemblies, like the Assembly of Macedonia. He asked believers that were more willing, that were more matured in the faith, to be a blessing to their fellow brothers by enabling the work of the ministry. And so here's the first sign of a true prophet, a true follower of Yahushua. His concern is not with personal gain. His concern is not with what he can get from the people, but as the beginning part A of verse 14 tells us, that he was more concerned with their needs rather than with his needs. Okay, so that's point number one concerning the true prophet. The true prophet is more concerned with the need of the flock more than he is with his own personal need. That is not what we see among false prophets. False prophets are more concerned with their needs than they are with the needs of the flock. So, for example, you see many false prophets, whether they're on TV or they're in that building they call the church on the corner in your city. They're living in mansions, but 98% of their congregation are living in slums or living in just utter poverty. Why? Because they're concerned with their needs rather than the needs of the people. And even though the people are suffering, even though their people are on the brink of starvation, they are still continuing to lie to the people and telling them that the reason why you are where you are is that because you're not giving enough. And so they're manipulating the people, they're robbing the people. We see here that that was not what Paul do, or what he would do, or what he did. And so he says, so this third time, verse 14, the third time I come to you, and I will not be burdensome to you. He says, I will not be burdensome to you. The true prophet is not a burden to his flock. I will not be burdensome to you, for I seek not yours. I seek not what you have, but I seek you. I don't want your money, he said. I desire to see your soul saved. That's the heart of a true prophet. For the children ought not to lay up for the parents, but the parents for the children. Do you hear that? He said the children ought not to lay up for the parents, but the parents for the children. Isn't that the way it works? You have kids in your house, right? Now, do the kids provide for you, or do you provide for the children? Yet, in the churches, it is the other way around. The shepherd is the one that is being provided for, and the sheep are the ones making the provision, when it should be the shepherd providing for the sheep. But you see, the reason why that is because they're not true shepherds. They're hirelings. The sheep does not belong to them, and so they care nothing about the sheep. And so what they will do is they will take every last drop, they will drain every last drop from the sheep. But Paul says, isn't it that the parent should lay up, should provide for the children, and not the children for the parents? Verse 15, and I will very gladly spend and be spent for you. Paul says, I will give up my own resources. I will spend my own resources, and I will work myself to exhaustion for you. These false prophets, they're not willing to do neither. They won't spend their own resources unless it's for the purpose of manipulation. You see, they'll do for a few people But the whole idea behind doing for a few people is to plant in the minds of the people that, see, because so-and-so was willing to give their 2 pennies, you see what happened? God has blessed them. Yeah, the God of this world, through the God of this world's servant, that false prophet, has now blessed that person. Okay? And so the only reason why they would give out of their own pockets is for the purpose of manipulation, to have everybody else say, look, oh, look, God has blessed sister so-and-so or brother so-and-so. I got to sow my seed. You see, so the intent for them coming out of their pocket is for the purpose of manipulation. But Paul says, I would gladly spend and be spent for you, though the more abundantly I love you, the less I be loved. And unfortunately, this is another truth concerning the true prophet and the false prophet. The true prophet is hated, though he loved with his whole heart. The false prophet is loved, even though he has no true love for the people. It's all about manipulation. It's all about the motivation. And so, he says in verse 16, but be it so, I did not burden you. Nevertheless, being crafty, I caught you with guile. Paul was zealous for the people. The true prophet, they're zealous for the people, even though they know that they'll be stoned by proclaiming truth, even though they know that nobody would want to be their friends, even though they know that nobody would want to be around them, associate with them, yet they stand firm on the truth. A false prophet, rather than being isolated, he would rather compromise the truth, because he cares nothing about